Okay, so let us start the class. I think my slides are visible to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So in the last lecture, we had studied, I think, tunnel diode. Yeah, tunnel diode we had studied. We had also discussed heterojunctions and then ohmic contacts and Schottky contacts, rectifying contacts. Right. So this is what we had studied in the last class, in the previous lecture. Now let us talk about this light emitting diode. First of all, this light emitting diode. So this is also the same PN junction diode that we had studied. So this is also similar to the same PN junction diode that we had studied. And the symbol of this light emitting diode, or LED, is this. That is a normal diode followed by these two arrows, which are going, outside this diode, away from the diode. So these two arrows represents LEDs. Okay. And this light emitting diode is used in forward bias modes always. Right? So we had earlier studied that in a forward bias diode, the carriers recombine everywhere in the device. Right? So we had studied some time back that in a forward biased diode, we had studied that the carriers recombine everywhere in the device, since in a forward bias diode, diffusion will be dominant. So holes will diffuse and you have a minority carrier concentration in the n-type semiconductor. So the holes are minority carrier concentration now, or minority injection inside the n-type semiconductor. Similarly, n-type electrons, they diffuse, or what we can call as minority carrier injection inside the p region. Okay. So minority carrier concentration we have in the p region also, and also in the n region. Okay. Now these minority carriers which are injected into n and p regions, they recombine everywhere in the device. I mean, these will recombine as they diffuse further. Okay. And if the length is large, length of this region is very large, maybe 4 or 5 times larger than the diffusion length of the carriers, then all of them will recombine and none of them will reach here at the electrode. Okay. So that is why we commented that the diode should be short. Okay. So diode should be short in length. Okay. So these minority carriers, they diffuse and they recombine everywhere in the device, not just in the p region and n region, but these carriers also recombine in the depletion region, that is in this region. Okay. So since we have already commented some time back that in the depletion region no carrier can exist, but yes, of course, some minority carriers will drift into this region. Okay. And while drifting from p-type to n-type region, so they can recombine in this region also. So that is why we say that in a forward bias diode, carriers recombine everywhere in the device, right? Not just in n and p region, but also in the depletion region. Yeah, so that is what is the second point, which says injected minority carriers recombine with the majority carriers. Right? So these minority carriers, they recombine with n-type. Similarly, these minority carriers, which is electron, they recombine with the holes. Okay. Now we have also studied that whenever the recombination process is happening, so that process carries away energies equal to the band gap energy of the material. Right? So remember what is recombination. Recombination means that some electron in the conduction band, this loses its energy and it falls into a hole in the valence band. So this is what is called recombination. That is, some electron in the conduction band, maybe this is my conduction band and this is valence band, which is full of holes. Now recombination happens when the electron in the conduction band make a transition to the valence band and fills the gap or fills the holes. Okay. And in this way, both electron hole pair is now not free, or what we call as that free electron hole pair is lost. Right. So now the electron hole pair is not free when recombination happens. And when this recombination happens, so this process gives out an energy which is equal to the band gap of the semiconductor material. Right? So that is this band gap between EC and EV. The space is the band gap or band gap energy. So whenever recombination happens, this gives away or carries away energy equal to the band gap energy. Now this energy which is coming out due to recombination. So this is important to us. So we had some time back commented that if it is a direct band gap semiconductor, during the recombination process, the energy which is coming out, so that will be transferred to photons. Or one can observe a light coming out because of this recombination in a direct semiconductor. However, in a indirect band gap semiconductor, so in an indirect band gap semiconductor, we had studied that this recombination takes place via some impurity states within the band gap. So some impurity, that is electron from conduction band, makes a transition to some impurity state within the band gap, and then from there it again makes a transition to the holes which are present in the valence band. So that was an example of indirect band gap semiconductor. Some time back we had studied. Now in this indirect band gap semiconductor, we had studied that this recombination process also releases some energy, but that energy is transferred to the phonons, okay, or is carried away by the phonons, right? Or phonons is also equivalent to saying that it is transferred to the lattice, because of which lattice vibrations are there. So direct recombination and indirect recombination. Direct recombination gives out an energy equal to the band gap, okay, and this is carried away by the photons. So that is what is my fourth point. That is for silicon, which is an indirect band gap semiconductor, recombination is indirect through a dead site in the middle of the band gap. Right? So recombination is through a impurity state within the band, and the energy released is carried by phonons, which is actually a unit of lattice vibrations. So this is what happens in indirect recombination. Let me clear everything. Okay. Now for a direct band gap material, recombination process is through band to band transition, and the entire band gap energy released is carried away by photons. So that means in our LED, direct recombination is required, right? So that is for making a LED, you need to select a direct band gap semiconductor, where recombination process will result into an energy which will be equal to the band gap of that material, and that energy which is released during the recombination will be carried away by photons, and then a light can be created. Okay. So for LEDs you need to have a direct band gap material. Now another important point to understand here is that not all materials are useful for making a LED. Okay? Because if it has to be a LED which emits light in the visible range of the spectrum, right? So if it has to be an LED which emits a light in the visible range of the spectrum, then that actually depends upon the choice of the band gap of the material that I'm selecting. Okay? Because wavelength of such radiation which is coming out from the LED, so that is given by this formula. That is lambda is proportional to 1.24 divided by the band gap of the material. And we understand that visible range of light is when lambda falls in between 380 nanometer to 750 nanometer. So when lambda is in between, that is wavelength of the light is in between 380 nanometer to 750 nanometer, so then only that light will be visible to us. So if you want to make a visible LED, visible light LED, then one has to select materials, that is materials with band gap which results in lambda or wavelength of 380 nanometer to 750 nanometer. Otherwise, even if it is producing light, we won't be able to see. For example, what happens in infrared LEDs, right? So visible range is 380 nanometer to 750 nanometer. So which can be achieved by selecting a material with an appropriate band gap, EG. So for example, if I want to select a material which radiates or which gives a light which has a wavelength of 380 to 750 nanometer, so the band gap of that material should lie between 1.6 eV to 3.26 eV, right? So that is this band gap EG. So this should be 1.65 eV to 3.26 eV. So that my lambda from this formula comes out to be equal to 380 nanometer to 750 nanometer. Now there are some materials which have band gap in this range. So for example, uh, maybe let us talk about first of all a very popular material, gallium arsenide, which is also having a direct band gap, and the band gap is 1.42 eV. So that 1.42 band gap, so that is out of this range, that is 1.65 to 3.26 eV. So gallium arsenide has a direct band gap, but the band gap is 1.42 eV, which is out of this range. So hence, one cannot make visible light LEDs by using gallium arsenide because it is not capable of emitting visible light. Since the band gap is 1.42 eV, so the lambda, that is wavelength produced, so that will not be in this range, 380 to 750 nanometer. Now similarly, there is another popular material for making LEDs, which is called as gallium phosphide, which has a direct band gap again, and this time the band gap is 2.26 eV, which is in this range. Now this 2.26 eV translates to wavelength of 0.5487 micrometer, which relates to green light in the visible spectrum. So gallium phosphide can be used to produce LEDs or to fabricate LEDs which produce green light. So green light LEDs can be fabricated. Similarly, all light LEDs can be fabricated. For example, red or maybe blue or any yellow, any LED with any light combinations can be produced by selecting a proper band gap of the material. So for example, a few other popular materials which are used in LEDs are gallium arsenide phosphide, then zinc telluride, then a combination of zinc and selenium, and cadmium sulfide, cadmium and selenium, okay, then silicon carbide, and also gallium nitride. So all these can be used to make LEDs which have visible light emission. Now apart from LEDs, the photo detectors or photodiodes are also important. In fact, these photodiodes just behave opposite to how a LED behaves. Right? So photodiodes are just behaving opposite to how an LED behaves. And these photodiodes are represented by this symbol. So where you will find that this is my symbol of PN junction diode, and the only change is these arrows. So this time these arrows are pointing into the diode. Right? So in the LED, the diodes were pointing out. So photodiodes, the arrows are pointing in. So this is how one can represent a photodiode by this symbol. Now this photodiode, this operates always in reverse biased mode. Okay. So we understand that, in fact, this is also just a PN junction. Okay. So we have a PN junction again. Okay. Now this time when this is reverse biased. Okay. So this PN junction is reverse biased. And when this is reverse biased, so obviously we understand this reverse bias will make this depletion region wide. So the depletion region extends. Earlier it was here. up to this point at equilibrium, but when the reverse bias is applied, the depletion region extends. Okay? And it extends to this point, these 2 points. Now when the depletion region extends, so obviously the current, if somebody tries to connect this PN junction via some resistive load, okay, in reverse bias mode, so a reverse current will obviously can be seen from N to P. The reverse current will flow, right? Now this reverse current, that is the strength of this reverse current, so this can be increased if a light is shown. Okay? If a light is shown on this junction, this strength of reverse current can be increased. Okay? So what happens if I show the light on this junction? So showing the light on this junction would mean that electron hole pairs are being created inside the junction. Okay? So within the junction, that is within the depletion region, electron hole pairs are being created, or minority carriers are created within the depletion region. Now when the minority carriers are created within the depletion region, so we had understood some time back that this reverse current I, so this depends upon the number of minority carriers and how frequently they are crossing the junction. Now when they are created inside the junction, so obviously because of this large electric field, they will be immediately swept away to P and N sides, these electron hole pairs or minority carriers. So because of this, the current will increase. Okay? So when you show a light on this junction, EHPs will be created, electron hole pairs will be created, and these electron hole pairs will be swept away by this electric field. Because of this, the current will increase. That is, reverse current will increase. Okay? Now, the reverse current will increase, and or maybe one can say that the carriers are moving, so these carriers can be now made to pass away through this resistor. So I attach a resistor over here through which the carriers will pass, or the current will pass, the reverse current will pass, and it will produce a drop across this resistance. Now the amount of drop across this resistance, I mean, if it is more, I mean this resistance, the drop across this resistance, so this can be used to indicate the amount of light falling on the sample. So how much amount of light is falling on the sample, so that can be indicated by the drop across this resistance. So that is actually the principle behind a photodetector or a photodiode. That is, one can detect how much light is falling on the junction by looking at the drop across this resistance. Right? So that is what is the job of photodetector. That is, detect the amount of light which is falling on the junction by looking at the drop across the external resistance which we have connected to this device. Now one can also look at the IV characteristics of the photodetector or this junction diode, which is reverse biased. Okay. So in this characteristics, you will notice that this curve, this corresponds to a normal PN junction diode. Right. So this is a normal PN junction diode curve. That is, you have a forward bias characteristics. The current start increasing when you apply a forward bias, and then you have almost negligible current when the diode is reverse biased, or when you apply a negative bias. Now in this condition, it is assumed that generation rate is 0. So generation rate means generation of this electron hole pairs inside the depletion region is very small, minimum, negligible, or let us say it is 0. Now when the light is shined on this, so the amount of light will decide the amount of electron hole pairs created or the generation rate. So the generation of electron hole pairs is actually controlled by the amount of light which is being shown on this junction. So if you show more light on this junction, the generation rate will go up. That is, electron hole pair creation will go up. So here few generation rates have also been mentioned, that is G1, G2 and G3, which depends on the amount of light which is being shown. And here the G3 is greater than G2 is greater than G1. That is, generation rates are varying, which are variable by the amount of light that you are showing on the junction. So obviously, since the minority carrier concentration is increasing, so because of this generation rate, the generation current is also increasing in the reverse bias. So the level of generation current or the reverse current is this much, right? So earlier the level of generation current is only this much. So when the generation current or the generation is increased, the level of generation current or the reverse current is increased. Similarly, when more light is shown or the level of generation is increased, generation current also increases. Right? So this reverse bias current is also called, we had sometime commented that this is also called generation current, okay? Because it is due to the generation of electron hole pairs or carriers within the device. Similarly for G3, the level of current has further increased. Okay? And another important thing you will notice here in this picture is that for forward bias also, the current has negative values, right? So for example, this is forward bias. This is also forward bias. I mean, all these points are forward bias. And in the forward bias case also, the current has negative values. It is in the fourth quadrant, right? So the current is in the fourth quadrant. That means current is having negative values for forward bias case also. However, in the normal PN junction diode where no light is shown, for forward bias, you always get either zero current or positive current. But here, forward bias is resulting in further generation current or the reverse current. Now, an important thing to notice over here in this photodiodes or photodetectors would be that the photodiodes or photodetectors should have zero dark current. Just a second. Okay. So it should have a zero dark current. So what is dark current here means? Dark current means the reverse current when no light is being shown, right? So that is called dark current. That is this reverse current when there is no light. So obviously we had commented some time back that reverse current should be almost zero, right? So it should have a zero dark current. I mean, good photodetectors or photodiodes should have zero dark current, okay? And it should also have a high responsivity. So responsivity here means amount of reverse current generated divided by the amount of illumination. That is how much illumination is generating how much reverse current. So that is actually the responsivity. That is reverse current divided by the illumination, the amount of illumination or amount of light which is shown on the sample or the diode, right? So that is responsivity. So high responsivity means for small illumination, you should have large reverse current. So that is high responsivity. Now, similar to the photodiodes or photodetectors, I mean, the principle of solar cell is also same as photodiodes. In fact, the solar cells are also represented by the same symbol as a photodiode is represented. Now, but the solar cell is operated in open circuit mode. I mean, you don't connect any bias over here, or you don't connect any resistor over here. Okay? So when the light is shown over this solar cell, okay, so this produces an open circuit voltage. I mean, some open circuit voltage is produced here on these two terminals, and this open circuit voltage can be used to drive any device or anything. Right? So I have an open circuit voltage created because of the illumination of light on this junction, and this open circuit voltage can be connected to any device. Okay. So again, the IV characteristics of the solar cell is also almost similar. Okay. And the amount of reverse current or the amount of current depends upon the generation rates. Generation rate depend upon the amount of illumination. Then we mark these 4 points here on the voltage axis, that is diode voltage axis, and these are open circuit voltage points, that is VOC1, VOC2, 3 and 4. VOC here means open circuit voltage. Okay. So open circuit voltage so VOC1 is open circuit voltage. Open circuit voltage when the diode current is zero. Right. So all these open circuit voltages points are selected where the diode current is zero. Okay. That is, the diode is open. I mean, this circuit is open. So there is no current. Okay. Similarly, on the current axis, we mark again these 4 points and we call these as short circuit current points. Okay. So short circuit current when the diode voltage is zero. Okay. So short circuit when the diode current is zero, and open circuit when the diode, short circuit when the diode voltage is zero, and open circuit when the diode current is zero. So the principle of solar cell is that a voltage may be made to appear across an open circuited diode under external illumination. Okay, so this is known as photovoltaic effect. That is, a voltage can be made to appear across this open circuit diode, okay, under the external illumination. So this is the principle behind the solar cell, which is also known as photovoltaic effect. In fact, let us understand a little bit more about this solar cell. So we'll read these points here. The point number 1 says a solar cell is an electric device that converts energy of light directly into electricity. So energy of light is directly connected into electricity. So light energy which is falling here, so that is directly connected into electricity. So that is one job of the solar cell. Okay, to convert light energy into electrical energy. Now this is a form of photoelectric cell which is defined as a device whose electrical characteristics such as current, voltage or resistance vary when exposed to light. So obviously we had seen here the current, voltage all are varying, so current resistance will also vary. Okay, so it depends on the generation rate, that is amount of light, how much amount of light is shown on this solar cell or this diode. So this controls actually all these 3 parameters, that is current, voltage and resistance. Then third point says individual solar cells can be combined to form modules which are also known as solar panels. So we understand what are solar panels. So solar panels are basically individual solar cells or a combination of individual solar cells, maybe 100 or more solar cells are combined together to form a module which is also known as a solar panel. Now this point is important, that is a common single junction silicon solar cell. Silicon is a popular material which is used to create solar cells. So a common single junction solar cell can produce a maximum open circuit voltage of approximately 0.5 to 6 volts. Okay, so a single junction silicon solar cell can produce an open circuit voltage of 0.5 to 0.6 volts. Okay. Next point is also important, which says that solar cells are described as being photovoltaic irrespective of whether the source is sunlight or an artificial light. Right. So this illumination which we had seen, so this can either be sunlight or it can also be an artificial light. So both will give the same effect in solar cell. That is photovoltaic effect can be achieved whether this light is sunlight or an artificial light, it doesn't matter. Okay, now this solar cell actually has the working principle of solar cell. It depends upon, let us say I have a diode or solar cell here, right? The working principle of this solar cell is that let us say this is a PN junction over here. So the working principle is that when you show the light on this, so when you show light, so this light will create electron hole pairs, or which is also called as excitons. So this light generates electron hole pairs, which is called excitons. Okay, so this is my electron hole pairs, or also called as excitons. So the first thing is that the light will generate or create excitons. Okay. Now the second point is, right? So first point is that the principle is that absorption of light generates either electron hole pairs or excitons. Okay. Now the second point in the working principle is separation of charge carriers of opposite sides. That is the breaking of these excitonic pairs, okay, into separate electron hole pairs. That is, if this breaks and this releases electron and hole, they are both are free now, right? So the second point is that separation of exciton, that is breaking of this exciton pair, and now my electron and hole are free. And when the electron and hole are free, they can move freely. So where they will move, that is third point. That is separate extraction of those carriers to an external circuit. So as I said, we had an open circuit over here. So now these electrons and holes, so these can be moved or these can be extracted to an external circuit. That is, this electron, this will move to this terminal, and this hole, this will move to this terminal, and they both will be collected here, and then open circuit voltage will be generated, which can be fed to any device. Now maybe I think I have also found a YouTube video which is actually an animation which shows the working principle of this solar cells. Maybe we can see. So let me show you this video on YouTube, which tells us the working principle. Maybe you can also see. I'll share the link with you. Okay.
Most commonly used renewable energy source is solar energy. But how is solar energy used to generate electricity? A photovoltaic or PV system is used to convert
Okay.
the solar or light energy into electrical energy. The basic component of the PV system is known as the solar cell. A single solar cell has the capacity
सर वीडियो प्ले नहीं हो पा रही सर नॉर्मली सर
producing about 0. Increasing the 30 solar 15 volts together is known as solar array and can be used to achieve required current and voltage. How does the solar cell work? The generation of electricity on exposure to sunlight is known as the photovoltaic effect. This principle is used by solar cells to produce electricity. The solar cells are made up of semiconductors, mainly silicon, and comprises 3 layers. The top layer, called the N-type layer, is comparatively thin and contains high concentration of electrons. The bottom layer, called the P-type layer, contains high concentration of holes. When the P-type and the N-type semiconductor is joined, it forms APN junction. On forming APN junction, the electrons of the N-type material try to reach the P region, creating a negatively charged layer. Similarly, the holes of the p-type material try to reach the N region, creating a positively charged layer. This region between the two layers is known as the depletion region of the semiconductor.
So this we had already studied. I mean, because of the diffusion of holes and electrons on both sides, the positive carriers are or ions are deposited on one side of the junction and the negative are deposited on the other side of the junction. So which is actually called depletion region, right? So which is full of ions only. So this region, which is also shown over here, so that also contains this positive and negative ions. So this is not free, right? So this is entire region is called depletion region.
Sunlight penetrates the top thin layer easily to reach the depletion region. Due to the deficiency of charge in the depletion region, it contains neutral atoms. These neutral atoms are broken when the photons from the sunlight strike the depletion layer. This knocks the electrons from the neutral atoms, leaving.
So these are basically excitons, or the electron hole pairs which are created because of the sunlight. Right? So electron hole pairs are created now
Behind the holes and producing free charge carriers. Then, the electrons move towards the N-type layer and the holes move towards the P-type layer due to the electric field.
Yeah, so electrons are now, electrons and holes which are free now, I mean, they have to be separated. The excitonic pair has to break and the electrons and holes will be collected at the leads. That is, electrons will go to the N-type layer and holes will move to the P-type layer.
Field present in the depletion region. On connecting an electronic circuit, the electrons flow through it, generating electricity to electrical devices like bulb, fan, etc.
Okay, so I think that was a self-explanatory animation. So I have given a link also here, so you can also see this. But yes, the principle is same that we have discussed. Right? So all these 3 points and whatever points we have mentioned. Right? So all these things correspond to a solar cell. So I hope my voice is audible to you.
Yes, sir. Video play नहीं हो पा रही थी सर अच्छे से.
Okay, so is it breaking? My voice is breaking in between?
No, sir. आपकी voice तो आ रही है पर सर video वगैरह में voice बहुत break हो रही थी.
Okay, don't worry. You can see the video later. No problem. So I've already mentioned the link over here. So you can just simply copy the link and paste in YouTube, and that can be seen. No issues, right? So concept is same, which I have already told you. So, same thing is being told in the video also. Okay. Now let us come on to another topic, important topic. In fact, I think this would be the last unit. In fact, this unit should be separate. I mean, the BJT is a separate unit. It should have been the separate unit. Then the MOSFET should also have been a separate unit. But since this is a basic course on introduction to semiconductors, so that is why these two important units have been combined together. So we'll not talk in detail about these two devices as we have done for the PN junction diode, but yes, everything is related to what we have already studied for PN junction diode, right? So we'll talk about the things which have to be covered in your syllabus. Okay. So since this requires separate units, these two. So anyhow, let us talk about this field effect transistors and BJT. In fact, there are two transistors. One type is called bipolar junction transistor, BJT, and the other type is field effect transistors, or FET. Now this field effect transistor, so this has several forms. Okay. So the field effect transistor, or FET, it has, this comes in several forms. Okay. So one of the forms is, for example, called junction field effect transistor, or JFET. So we'll talk about this JFET. So one of this is junction field effect transistor. So where the control voltage varies the depletion width of a reverse biased PN junction. So in a junction FET, maybe I have a picture for this JFET or junction FET. So let us understand from here itself. So in junction FET, We have three regions. One is P plus, heavily doped. The other one is N-type region, and the third one is again P plus region. Right. So P N P or P plus N P plus. Right. So this kind of device is called junction field effect transistor. Now, all transistors have not all. Let us say this one only. So it has three terminals. So one is called source terminal, the other one is drain terminal, and the third terminal is called gate terminal. Source, drain, and gate. So why this is called source? Source because it will emit carriers. That carrier can be electrons or holes. So depending upon the material to which the source is connected. So for example, source is now connected to N-type material, so it will only emit electrons. Source or a source of carriers, right? So source of which carrier here? Electrons. If it was P here, then it would have been a source of holes. So junction FET, this FET is having N channel. In fact, this is called, let us say, this is called channel. This region is called, let us say, channel. So that means this is a N-channel junction FET, which will emit electrons from the source. Right? Similarly, one can have a P-channel junction FET. Right? So P-channel junction FET will have P over here and N plus here, okay? And similarly N plus over here. So this type of junction FET will be called P-channel junction FET. But currently this is, let us say, N-type or N-channel junction FET, because channel is N, that is source is connected to N-type material. Okay. Now it has three terminals, source, gate and drain. Source because it is a source of carriers, which is electron in this case. Drain, so this will collect these carriers which are emitted from source. I mean, source will emit carriers, that is in this case electrons, and drain will collect these carriers. So the job of source is to produce or emit carriers, and the job of drain is to collect these carriers. So that is why these two terminals are called source and drain. Now the next terminal, third terminal, is called gate terminal. Now the flow of this electron, I mean how many electrons are collected here. So that depends, I mean that can be controlled by this third terminal, which is called gate. So the bias, that is the voltage which is applied to the gate, this can control the carriers which are collected at the drain, or the current can be controlled. So since source is emitting electrons which are collected at drain, so obviously when electrons are moving from left to right, the current will be from right to left. That is, current will be from drain to source. Okay. So now this drain to source current can be controlled by this third terminal, which is called gate. So you apply some bias voltage on this gate, so that voltage will control this current between drain and source. So how it is controlled, we will study. So before that, let us go back to these points. Okay. So in a junction FET, the control gate voltage varies the depletion width of a reverse bias PN junction. I'll come back again over here. Now this gate voltage, so this will control actually the depletion region of this junction. That is, this is a PN junction, P plus N junction. Already you see a depletion region over here. Now this depletion region can be controlled by this gate voltage. Okay. So we understand how this depletion region can be more, right? So this is gate here. Okay. Now I have a drain over here. Let us say I apply positive voltage on drain, and source is already connected to ground. Okay. And now the application of gate voltage, so that will actually control the the depletion region over here. Now this junction, maybe let us say that gate is also shorted to source. So that gate is now connected to negative here, and drain, that is this N type. So this is connected to already positive, right? So this N type is connected to positive end and P type is connected to negative end. So that means this junction, PN junction, is reverse biased. So this junction is reverse biased. So when this is reverse bias, so obviously that means this VGD, that is gate to drain voltage, or simply we say reverse bias on the gate to drain, that is reverse bias on this PN junction, will control this depletion region width. That is, this depletion region can become large on applying more gate voltage, more negative gate voltage. Similarly, the gate voltage is here also, the same gate. I mean, all these are shorted, these two gates. So that means amount of reverse bias on this junction will also increase. So that means this depletion region, this one, so this will also increase. Maybe a point will come when the entire channel, that is this region, will be covered by a depletion region. So when the entire channel is covered by depletion region, then the electrons which were trying to move to drain, so how they will move now to the drain? Okay, so that is an important concern, right? So in fact, now you have somehow blocked or restricted the amount of electrons which are now being collected at drain because of this depletion region. So why this depletion region was created? Because of the biasing conditions on gate, or gate and drain, or gate and drain reverse bias. So by varying the gate and drain reverse bias, that is by varying this gate voltage, you make it more negative, reverse bias is more. So this entire channel region, so that can be covered by a depletion region, and the amount of electrons which were flowing from source to drain can be limited or restricted. So that will actually control the drain current. Okay. So that is actually the principle of JFET. That is how to control this drain current via application of a bias voltage on the gate. So that is actually the principle of this JFET. That is how to control drain current by varying the bias voltage on the gate terminal. So let us come back to again second point, that is, again I'll read, in a junction FET, the control voltage gate varies the depletion width of a reverse bias PN junction. So we have understood how it varies the depletion region width. We will talk about this more in detail. Okay. Now before that, let us come on to another device, a similar device which is called as MESFET, okay, or this is also called metal semiconductor FET. Okay. So where this PN junction, which was earlier in the JFET, so that is replaced by a Schottky barrier. So in JFET, we had a PN junction which is now replaced by a metal semiconductor junction or a Schottky barrier. So that is why this is called metal semiconductor FET or MESFET. Okay. So I'll go back to this slide and show you. So here we had a PN junction. Now this P is replaced by metal. Okay. So that I have a Schottky barrier now between this metal and N. Similarly, this is also replaced by metal. Okay. And this turns into a MESFET or metal semiconductor field effect transistor, right? So three devices we had seen. One is field effect transistor. In fact, it has several forms. One of the forms is JFET, junction field effect transistor. Second form is MESFET, that is metal semiconductor field effect transistor. Okay. Okay. Now third device, third form of FET. So this is called metal insulator semiconductor field effect transistor. So this is the third form of FET. Two forms are already mentioned, JFET and MESFET. Third form is called MISFET, okay, which is metal insulator semiconductor field effect transistor. Right? So metal insulator semiconductor. So first layer is metal. Second layer is insulator. Third layer is semiconductor. So this is metal, M. This is insulator, I. And this is semiconductor. Right? So earlier in JFET we had P, that is semiconductor, semiconductor, semiconductor. Okay. So here we have metal, insulator, and semiconductor. That is, this becomes metal, M, and this becomes insulator, and this becomes semiconductor. So that is another device which is called now MISFET. Okay. Metal insulator semiconductor field effect transistor. Metal insulator and semiconductor. Okay. Field effect transistor. Okay. Now a common type of this special type, special case, that is if you replace this insulator, by a silicon dioxide layer, SiO2 layer. Okay. So replace this insulator layer by silicon dioxide layer or oxide layer. Then there is now another form of a field effect transistor formed, which is called MOSFET. That is metal, okay, oxide and semiconductor field effect transistor. So what else is required in this metal oxide semiconductor, how the channel is formed and where the gate is and everything. So that we'll talk about, we'll talk about these things later. But yes, let us now understand that there are four forms of field effect transistor, right? JFET, MESFET, MISFET, and MOSFET. Okay. So I think you might have another class after this. So I'll stop here itself. Okay. And if you have any queries, then maybe you can ask your queries.